Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Objects in the Mirror. That's right. Objects in the Mirror, the podcast that asks the question, as it concerns the racial history of our country, are the objects in the mirror closer than they appear or not? I'm so excited to be back with you. This is Side A, Episode 3. We have a conversation with my Uncle Darrell. He has so many good things to say. Please share this with your friends or your family. It doesn't matter if they have an iPhone or an Android. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, and I'm hoping soon you can find us on Spotify. Have a great listen. So my first question is, if you could just think of from the era, and we're talking about, no matter what time you were, pre-civil rights, during the civil rights, and even post-civil rights, but just as it concerns race, and growing up in the South and living in the South, what's one memory that kind of sticks out to you? Where I guess you realize, people look at me differently because I'm black. I'm treated differently because of the color of my skin.
Okay, well, you don't really pay attention to that that type of incident until you face with that situation. In my case, before I went to the all-white school, you didn't pay attention to, the racism was there, but it wasn't really blatant. It was hidden somewhat. But, when you really see it is when you are faced with, situation like when I switched from all black school to all white school. And that's when I was a junior. Went from a junior, from a sophomore to a junior to the all white school. And at that time, that was in 1967. And there was only 9 blacks in the high school. It was high school at the time. So that's when I really first was faced with, racism, and understood exactly what it was, even though I knew about it. But like I said, this community was pretty much predominantly black, so we stayed pretty much with our own. We didn't deal with, the other races. We went to the stores and bought stuff, but that's different, But when you really put right there in that situation, then you can really see what it's really about.
Well, do you mind describing how when you was a part of, I guess, integrating at school, part of the non-blacks, what were certain things that you realized, or the times where you felt uncomfortable, or where it hit you in the face, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the first things that I noticed, one of the first things I noticed was that the looks we got and the stares, and you could tell that they didn't like us, So that was the first indicator. And you could deal with that, as long as they didn't hit you, push you or anything, but they would make the little remarks, and you would hear these little remarks as you walking down the hallway, passing each other. And but when I was really faced with it was, when I was on the football team, and that was in '67 when I joined the football team, and there was maybe 2 other black individuals that was on the team, but they quit before the season started because they didn't like what was going on with, the racism towards them, or the, discrimination towards them. And I saw that too, but I said, you know what? I want to play football, so I'm going to stick it out, And I was the only black on the football team, and I stuck it out. And there were some times, they would make the comments in the locker room. We were changing clothes and stuff like that. And even on the football field during practice, they try to hit me harder than, normal, but I would hit them just as hard as they hit me. So but I knew what was going on, because I was put in that situation in a sense, I didn't had to go to the white school. I thought maybe if I switched schools that I would do better in my studies, because the guys I was hanging around with, all we want to do is have a good time. We really weren't serious about doing our homework and stuff like that, so we were just barely getting by. But I thought if I switched schools, I wouldn't be around my best friends and I would do better in my studies. That wasn't true, because dealing with the racism made it even difficult for me, to get my studies. So I didn't do any better. If I had to do it over again, I may have stayed in the black school. I'm not sure. But then again, you say hindsight is 20/20. But like I said, there's during the regular season there was an incident that happened when we went off to play a football game, and coming back we stopped, the bus stop, and we all got off and went, into the restaurant to order something to eat. And while we were sitting there, the guy came up. I guess the owner of the restaurant came up and said, "You can't eat here." So, I got up and got back on the bus. And one of my teammates came to the bus and said, why did you leave? And I said, well, the guy said I couldn't eat there. So he went back and told the coach, and the whole team left. And that's when I could see things changing from that point, because my teammates were doing things that they couldn't see from the outside looking in. But when it happened to me, from someone else doing it, they could see that. And that's when they started to be more kinder to me and nicer, and realizing that it was wrong. What they was doing was wrong, but they couldn't see it until that happened to me. And I could see the changes in them, from that point on,
What, when the guy came, were you expecting the guy to come and say that to you?
No. It just,
was that the first time something like that had happened to you?
Yes. It took me totally by surprise. But at 16 years old, I didn't expect that, because we was a team. So I figured, everybody was welcome, to come into the place to eat, And I told my parents when I got home, and of course they were really upset, but that's the situation, you have to deal with, during that time, so.
And so you said your teammates have been treating you, their eyes were open to their own.
Exactly.
The way they got you.
Yeah, really.
In that situation, they were able to relate to you because you were their teammate.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Wait. Say you doing this, you ain't doing that, huh? What you doing, huh? What you doing, huh? Live authentic, huh? Salutes to that. Yeah, you say you poppin' with the chopper, huh? You ain't never drew it. Say you hustle on the block, but you ain't never do it. Man, I gotta do this, even if you rich or not. Stop claiming that you know the struggle if you ain't been through it. Why you lying though? Man, I find it laughable that people lose themselves just to raise a little capital. Dying for the comments and they calling me a radical. Burning bridges local, now you trying to go national. All day authentic, that's just how we live it. Rockin' with the king, focused on the mission. Know we got the sauce, whipping in the kitchen, truth hot. Best believe, so pay attention, man. Cause some of y'all got no class like you was on spring break. Pulling up until the sun up, now watching your pit tape. Did you realize that you out of line like Stephen A on first take? Then everybody gon' forget God until they run into a heartbreak. Whoa. Facts. True facts only. Keep it raw.
I can remember during the 60s where there were several of our classmates. We kind of boycotted, because the problem that we had at the black school was that we would get these hand-me-down books from the white school. And they were old books, raggedy books. And that was one of the things that was a complaint from our school and some of our classmates, because, we always got secondhand material. And if we'd have got the material that they got, I think we probably wouldn't have integrated. I think it was about equality, equal rights and all that. It wasn't so much about integrating. We didn't have to integrate really, but that was something that was going to happen regardless, because up north it happened years before it happened down here. We're talking in the 60s, right around 66. Up in the north, God knows, probably some of the kids don't even remember going to separate schools. We're talking about white kids. They went to integrate schools, years before we integrated. They had already integrated. So it was much better from that standpoint up north than it was down in the south. We're talking North Carolina, Alabama, places like that, So I think we had great teachers. We had great school. We had a great school. And I think we'd have been fine if we'd have just had the same rights that the white schools had. They just gave us hand-me-down stuff, and that's what was one of the biggest issues that we had.
So not just books was a part of it, but other things
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The books was a part of it. Yeah, the material.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So how when you were in school, um, your young, your teenage and young adult years, I guess, or while you were down here in Eastern North Carolina, how aware were you of things that were going on around the country, such as, like I said, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks?
Same with Betty. We would see it on TV. And we knew it wasn't right. But they had marches in Alabama and different places. If we didn't have any marches, we had a few things but they weren't marches. So we weren't really privy to a lot of that because we didn't have a Martin Luther King right here in North Carolina, like they did in Alabama. But we saw that on TV, and we saw what was being done to the black people in Alabama and different places like that. So we just wasn't faced with that here in our little county, even though we had some of the same issues, but they were more hidden racism than
Then overt, all right.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
What
We heard of crosses being burnt in people's yard, but I've never seen one. Yeah.
So you heard stories like that?
Yes, yeah. As a matter of fact, right across the street, my aunt Olivia, she remember telling us they burn a cross in her yard. But I never seen a cross being burnt that I can remember, But it did happen, It did happen because our parents would tell us about it, So like I said, you hear things as you get older. But there were some things going on down here in North Carolina that we didn't know about till we got older.
I know as you traveled more west across the state, get into college areas, there were things like the sit-in movements and those different type of marches and protests. None of that, anything like that. Was there any sit-in movements in this area, in New Bern, or anything close that you can recall?
No. I can just recall my oldest sister, talking about when she was at A&T when they had, marches and, sit-ins and stuff like that. And I think she was there during the same time Jesse Jackson was there. So I think she said she got locked up when he got locked up.
Gotcha.
But that was, that was at A&T. So, but nothing here, We, like I said, we had a little march in Bayburn. And that was our class leader, Sam Mosley, and several class leaders. We all marched, in Bayburn for something. It was something to do with equality, books and stuff. I'm sure it was, yeah. I remember that very vividly, yeah.
But they don't want a budget, say they 100 when most they ain't done it. Talk trash on the web, then in person steady duck it. Hold up, then like fall back, bro. You know that times are hard to pay and all my times is mad difficult. But on your page you cop the new J's. I'm sitting back like dang, bro, this man hypocritical. If it speaks truth, we don't wanna play it. Drugs, money, and the murder, then we'll replay it.
1968.
68.
What, do you know remember what month?
Wasn't it April or something like that?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what month it was.
But I remember, and I'm trying to remember what I was doing. Because if it was in April, I was in high school. I was a senior. I was senior in high school. I remember when he got assassinated. We were devastated. We, our class, all our classmates, our teacher, we were all crying. It was just unbelievable, So it was just one of those situations that you couldn't believe it happened, And it took this whole county by storm, from a standpoint of, wow, like a dark cloud came over this area. Well, it came over the whole United States, really, basically, And it was just a sad time, when that happened.
Do you remember the thoughts that were going through your mind when it happened?
No.
Was there a sadness? I mean,
Well, yeah, it was a
general
sadness.
sadness.
Yeah,
It
right.
was a sadness, but as a teenager, we're talking. She was 17, I was probably 18, and you don't know a lot about civil rights at that age. We didn't, so it was a sad time for us. But at the same time, we didn't take it as serious as our parents. and our relative aunts and uncles because they knew what Martin Luther King was all about more so than we did because we were too busy. Our minds were somewhere else, basically. That as teenagers, and not really knowing the ramifications of something like that happening. So.
So what were the thoughts? I mean, what were the thoughts and feelings of those older relatives that?
Oh, they were devastated. I can remember my mom was saying, that she cannot believe that he was assassinated. But you hear these sayings, the good die young. That's been said throughout history, and that's true in a lot of cases. A lot of good people die young, and but he done so much to be as young as he was. It's amazing how much he had done. And my parents, like I said, took it much harder than we did because they knew what he was all about more so than we did because we went into civil rights because we teenagers, we understood some of that, but it didn't hit us till late in the years, like when we really became adults and we understood what he was fighting for, and as you got older, you don't forget, and even now, I don't forget what my parents went through, what my grandparents went through, and what my great grandparents went through. That stays with me to this day because they really suffered for us to be where we are today. And a lot of young people don't understand that. The younger generation they don't have a clue of what their forefathers went through to get them to have so they can have what they have now. They don't understand it, and once they understand it, I think the world will be a better place because they'll have a better understanding of where we are now versus where we were 200 years ago. And it's amazing, and it's just that you have to really, really understand what it means for someone to carry you for those years, and able for you to carry someone else. If you understand what I'm saying.
I understand.
Yeah. So.
So what so what year did you leave this area?
I left in '68.
Left in '68.
I left in '68.
The military.
I didn't join the military. I left because matter of fact, I was just telling the people I was talking to earlier. We knew, all of us in this county, we knew our parents raised all of us pretty much the same. Betty's parents and pretty much all the parents around here raised us pretty much the same. We had three options. When we graduated from high school, we would either go into college, we would get a job, go in service, but we had to also leave home. So we were leaving home regardless. We were leaving home, going to college, getting a job, or going in service. So I left in '68. My brother was already in Connecticut, and I got a job at Winchester's. And I had a great job. Now, this is at '68, making about $3.60 an hour in 1968. But what happened was I wasn't there that long before I started getting these letters from Uncle Sam saying that I was going to get drafted. So my brother told me you can do one or two things. You could join the Navy or the Air Force because if you don't, you're going to get drafted. And Vietnam was hot. So I came back. I told my job that I was leaving to go in service, and they gave me a furlough, which means I could go back once I got out of service if I wanted to. So I came back down home and joined the Air Force and was in a delayed enlistment program. In March 17th, 1969 is when I joined and went into the Air Force. Okay. And that started my career in the Air Force.
I'm just trying to keep it real. Everybody down to hate. Growing every day, man, I live what I quote. May y'all been overrated, Kwame Brown in the post. And now that everybody's saying that I'm doing the most, man, I do what I do. Eternity is not a joke. And you saying that you fishing for souls? Cool. But how you fishing for souls if we ain't rocking in the same boat? Facts. True facts only. Keep it raw. Sushi. Say they 100 win, most they ain't done it. Say they 100 win, most they ain't done it. Say they 100 win, most they ain't done it. Win, most they ain't done it. Most they ain't done it. Whoa.
your time away. So you went away as a young adult, teenager. Your time in Connecticut versus your time back here. Uh, could you tell any difference culturally as far as again from a racial standpoint?
Oh yeah. I didn't really see that much racism in Connecticut. I really didn't. I worked in at this company and worked alongside of white people and black people. And matter of fact, one of the white guys I worked alongside of, he asked me did I like to go hunting. I said yeah. So we started going hunting together and stuff. So I didn't see that, And I think the reason I didn't see it because it was pretty much a done deal some years before that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? People had pretty much learned to get along together, work together, and just associate with each other without those things happening. So they may have happened years before, but I didn't see it when I got there in 1968. So, and when I came back here, like I said, came back here and joined the military. I can say in the military, I did see some of that in the military, but it didn't really register until a few years later when I went in the military. When I was in basic training, I'd been there for 2 weeks, and my TI training instructor told me to go back to the dorm because I needed to see the head instructor. So I went back to the dorm, and he told me I was going over to the other side of the base for remedial training. And I didn't question my instructor. My TI. I said, okay. I packed my things up, went to the other side of the base where I was told to go. And when I got there, I saw a lot of squadrons that were predominantly black. When I say 90% black. And it didn't, at 18 years old, I didn't really it didn't register till a few years later because when I went over, I was over there for about 2 weeks. And when I came back, my squadron had gone. I graduated. They were gone. So I was in a different squadron with people that I didn't know because they didn't come there with me. I had already been there for I guess now going on 4 weeks. So when I got back over to the other side of the base to finish my basic training, I was the senior airman in the squadron, so they made me like a dorm chief, which is fine, But so I saw some racism, and that was kind of hidden racism that the military had it, but they knew how to hide it.
It's kind of systematic.
Exactly. So what I learned years later is that once a person graduates from basic training, they get their first stripe. So you can imagine my teammates that I started with, they had already graduated and already got their stripes, so I could never catch up. So that was one way of kind of holding us back, if you want to look at it that way. That's really the way it happened. They could hold you back that way.
So you finished basic after they were finished basic?
I finished about 2 to 3 weeks after they had already finished.
Gotcha.
So they were already gone to tech schools and different places, and I was still in basic training. But like I said, it didn't bother me because I didn't catch it until sometime later, And but it was I enjoyed the military basic training. I enjoyed the military. It was a great career. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it again because I already had basic structure already from growing up. Parents, they give you a solid foundation growing up, so it wasn't that difficult for me to follow instructions in the basic training. So it was they holler and scream, but they weren't going to hit you. You might have thought they were, but they wouldn't, Not in the Air Force. I don't know about the Marines. I think the Marines are a little bit different. So, I can't speak for the Marines back then, but I can speak for the Air Force. And they probably done a whole lot of things with the Marines, but, that's neither here nor there. But I think it was a great idea for me to go into the military because my 2 older brothers, they were in the Navy, but they only stayed 4 years. And my younger brother was in the Air Force. He stayed 4 and got out. So I was the only one out of 4 boys that stayed in. But we all went in the military, And I think it was a good thing that we went in because, like I said, it gave you a sense of direction, even though you had some of it, but it kind of more or less solidified, what you really want to do in life, and you knew when you went in, and if you only stayed 4 years, you had a really good sense of direction. Then you were an adult. You had you had training. You could get a job and knew you could do the job because they instilled those traits that that you needed to survive in this world. And your parents pretty much gave you the foundation, and this just kind of more or less built on that. So.
Thank you so much for joining us this episode. We'll have part B of my conversation with Uncle Darrell coming pretty soon. The song that you heard was Sushi by an artist named Mike Sarge. Mike Sarge is an independent artist from Atlanta, Georgia, currently residing in Augusta. You can find him on Facebook, Twitter, IG, or Snapchat by searching Mike Sarge. That's MikeSarge. You can follow us on Twitter at OITM Podcast. That's at OITM Podcast. Remember to tell your friends all about us. Like, subscribe, share. Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, and even YouTube. So like, share, review, and then ask all your friends and family to do the same. See you soon.